The following is a preview of the New Models Podcast.
From Berlin to your block since 2018.
Full episodes are available only to subscribers, and there's hundreds more in our archive.
Join now on newmodels.substack.com or patreon.com/newmodels.
And you know the New Models Discord is popping. Patreon only. Stop sleeping and subscribe now.
New Models, you won't get it anywhere else. You're now locked in with New Models.
Greenroom, a New Models podcast.
Hi, and welcome to New Models Greenroom. I'm Carly Busta. On this episode, Little Internet and I speak with artists Calla Henkel and Max Pitegoff, who are in Berlin this month to show their new film, The End of Theater. The work is made over 3 years and is set in an old LA theater, which for the past 2 has also existed in real life as New Theater Hollywood. In talking about the film, we mostly discuss LA and the world around New Theater Hollywood, which has become something of a crucible for the city's most recent, which is to say post-strike, post-fire, perhaps even post-film industry reinvention. Anyone already familiar with what Max and Calla do know that this layered mode of art making has always been key to their practice. This creating a space, whether TV Bar or Times Bar or New Theater Urbanstrasse or New Theater Hollywood, that generates a scene, which produces its own art and star system, while also doubling as a location and cast for all that Max and Calla do. So it's interesting to speak with them in a time when every place now feels like a potential set, whether for a TikTok video or an ice raid, and when culture, American culture in particular, seems to be advancing more by fanfic than any conventional form of governance. On the show, we asked Max and Calla about their theater practice as a kind of expanded rule set, or dare I say protocol, for art making. In return, they tell us about LA, the city as backlot, and what it feels like to make DIY theater in a place forged through the contemporary logic of story drive. Apart from the theater, Max and Calla currently have work on view at Isabella Bortolozzi in Berlin with this work, The End of Theater, and at the Van Abbe Museum in Eindhoven, and also at LA's Hammer Museum as part of Made in LA. Additionally, Calla is the author of 3 novels, including the critically acclaimed Other People's Clothes, Scrap, and her forthcoming thriller, 4 Terrible Parents. I'm Carly Busta, joined by my co-host Lil Internet. Our guests are Calla Henkel and Max Pitegoff. Let's get into it. Okay, we're in a very wintry sub-zero Celsius studio today with Max Pitegoff and Calla Henkel.
Dankeschön. We're doing well. We love being back in sub-zero Berlin.
Yeah, it's shocking and beautiful and very different from Los Angeles. So we are very happy to be here.
In what ways?
You guys are masochists. It's like we live next to a canal and it is frozen over, which never happens along this.
Canal.
It's a shipping canal. So usually there's too much activity for the canal to actually freeze, and it's frozen over and it's just miserable outside. It's like a brown slushy, and yet here you are. And you're here because
we have a show. It's a gallery show, and we're showing the film that we've been shooting for the past 3 years in the theater that we run in LA called New Theater Hollywood. And the film itself is called Theater.
But it's also a return to Berlin, where we lived for a long time.
Yeah, and I feel like emotionally we live between Berlin and Los Angeles because I think we became adults here. You know, I got here when I was like 19.
Right.
So I still feel like when I come here, I'm like, oh, this is, yeah.
for me,
I became an adult here and I got here at 32.
I hear 35 would also say I became an adult here. So, but for me, you guys are very much Berlin. I mean, I associate you very strongly with this place, and my imaginary of Berlin is in part defined through the Max and Calla lens. When I first arrived here, I didn't know anybody, but I knew of you guys, and you guys had New Theater Urbanstrasse.
Yeah, and now we run a German theater in Los Angeles. This is like, we feel like expats in the U.S.
I have this feeling that I realized, like, when we came back, because we went to Eindhoven to show the film there before coming to Berlin. I was like, oh, right now I sort of feel like an astronaut in Los Angeles that's like come back to earth here, just because it's like I feel like so much of the practice that we have was developed here, and we've injected it into this other biosphere, and we're trying to see if it works, and it does in very different ways.
Maybe we should describe how your practice works, and maybe I could just set it up with this anecdote of the first time I went to New Theater on Urbanstrasse, which must have been like August or September of 2014, 12 years ago. I remember very distinctly going and not knowing anybody, and I don't really remember the plot of the play or what the play was, but I do very strongly remember the vibe of it. And I also remember the proscenium being pretty fuzzy. Like, I would say like 95% of the people knew everybody on stage and knew everyone behind the bar. And I knew no one, but everyone seemed to know each other. And they were all kind of performing, right? And I think like in your work, there's this understanding that the theater that's created collectively in all these spaces is ultimately what gives a kind of value to anything that you place in a gallery. This is very explicit in your work.
Yeah, that feels fair. I mean, we always talk about what is the thing itself.
Yeah.
And the thing itself is sometimes the work that we show in the gallery, but a lot of the times it's these spaces that we're running.
Yeah, and I think with New Theater Berlin, we didn't know how to cleave things apart. There was a messiness to it. And I think collectivity and to authorship and how you let those things mix was really like complicated. We were also young and we were all trying to write plays together, and it was very fun and chaotic. But I think like as we kept working, we realized for us to have the spaces really function, we needed to figure out how to let them have a public identity and a space where Max and I could exercise our relationship to the studio. So like I think we finally figured out how to do that with TV Bar.
Say what that was and where it appeared in the sequence of projects.
Yeah, we've been like juggling bars and theaters for the last 20 years. So we started by opening a bar in Berlin called Times Bar that was only around for like a year and a half. And then we opened New Theater Berlin in Kreuzberg. And then we worked at the Volksbühne, which is the big German state theater in the middle of Berlin. After that, we were like, we're never making theater again. And we wanted to open a bar that was very publicly interfacing.
Yeah. So we opened TV Bar, and after running all these spaces that were maybe messy in terms of what is public and what is private and like what is our work and what isn't, I think it's like very important to us that people not feel like they're walking into an artwork. I think that's actually a non-generative space. I think that makes you just feel like, I don't know, it shuts things down immediately. So with TV Bar, we were very particular about it would be a bar during the weekend, and during the week, Max and I would work on filming this TV show that we had always wanted to make set in a bar, and we would film it as long as the bar was open. So that ended up being 3 years. And it was shot on 16 millimeter, and it was called Paradise, and it worked in a lot of the things that actually happened in the bar. A lot of the people who worked in the bar ended up being in the film. There is this absolute mixing between fiction and reality that happens, but like the actual spaces themselves, there's two sides of it, like thinking about how you can have strangers enter them, enjoy them, and leave without having to know who we are or what we do. And so at the moment, New Theater is very much a theater in Los Angeles, and we put on one play a month, at this point almost two, and it is a very intense community with a big output 2 years in, which is great. But at the same time, it's the place that Max and I make this film called Theater, which we just finished. And
an extract of that is what's being shown at Bortolozzi Gallery.
We're showing the whole thing.
The whole thing.
All 5 episodes.
Great.
So
Okay,
that's why
right.
it's called The End of Theater, which is the name of the show. And it's very heavy-handed, but it is the end of this film in that form.
I think in the years past, we've decided that we would like end the projects and, you know, like shut down the space. And New Theater Hollywood is still going. Like there's still so many plans and we can't just shut it down.
Right,
So
right.
our solution is to like reformulate how we interact with it as artists.
Yeah, so we're going to work on a new film. And so I think it's also like we're letting the space kind of guide how we make work. And sometimes that just means we have to be quiet and listen, which is sort of the position we're in right now. But a lot of what we do in our current situation is we facilitate other people's work.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of maintenance and like being of service. And so that's like 80% of our job at the moment in LA, which is cool. And it means we get to meet really interesting people. And I think LA has this heat to it in terms of performance that's like nowhere else we've ever been, because everyone is there because they want something from the industry, and the industry isn't real anymore, or if it is, it's so fragmented, it's polluted or blanched. The basin of disappointment is so insane. There's just a lot of loose energy. And to have a theater where we can make things very quickly with people who are the best at what they do, who've been honing their craft, it means the theater can be very strange and very electric, and kind of something that I think wouldn't have happened here in Berlin.
Totally. Not to pigeonhole this into one of our favorite conversations, but we think a lot about how the content layer of art making has become kind of emptied out, and that the creative act has moved upstream to the level of those who set the protocol, run the space, design the program, and then downstream to the audience, the users, those who interact with it, those who assign meaning to it, those who pick some signal out of the noise of content and say, this is meaningful, whether it's like an Ibsen play or a slop, right? They're like, I connect with this, and they encode it with something. You know, we realized with new models that the audience, the community was as important of a signal as like whatever top-down content we could drop into the system. And so is it fair to think that what you're really doing is working on a protocol level to conduct the like audience receiver level? Like, does this way of thinking about your practice, does that feel right? And when I say protocol, I don't mean tech. I literally just mean like a social protocol, a kind of functioning system. Like, we have a theater, a real theater with 49 seats, red velvet that people can sit in and pay for tickets. And
I mean, we've always talked about how we set up rules for these spaces. And that's like, I mean, that's basically creating a protocol.
It is 100%.
And that's what the
creating a
front end
protocol.
is, when you and I are sitting down and it's like, okay, this is how we'll structure it. And then my mom always says this thing about like, you can't love something with a closed fist. So it's like you set up the rules and then things have to move in and move out. So much of what we do when it works is like we invite a few people in who we know can work and react into our structures and systems in a way that it's easy, and we'll also set the bar. Like, I think it's something that's like really important, is kind of to show the threshold at which we can work at the front, which is also why we invited Lily McMenemy, who had just made her piece at the London Performance Studios. And it was a beautiful piece, and they had invested so much in making this piece. And that was the first large work we did there. And it knocked everyone's socks off. And that becomes, for me, the energy that you then start with. And then people get excited. And I always say, it's a good play when someone comes up to Max and I and is like, I really want to make a play. Because it creates this sort of energy that then bounces between people. And I think with theater, when you see that how people can do it in different ways, it's almost anything. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If we come in this world of people who like tell stories, Max and I, we would challenge people to think about theater and like we have an anti-comedy rule. Like, we don't do stand-up. I mean, like, you have to have also these rules because that's like all
What's your thinking around that? Tell me, what is comedy signal
for me,
when you're in LA?
It's about, you can do comedy anywhere, so you don't have to do it here. Like, every single bar in Los Angeles, it's cheap, and you can do 10 of them in a night, and that's how you make rent. And like, Max and I have taken on an extreme amount of risk to make theater. Someone like Casey Jane Ellison, who comes from a comedy background, wanted to make a play, and we had to be like, you're gonna make a play, but her piece was outrageously good and a definite shift from how she normally works. When the form itself can challenge the way that people work in these other formats that are much easier to broadcast, that to me is where it's really exciting. And then in the protocol idea that Max and I have to like have the pieces there to help facilitate that challenge, you know? And it's like, so with Casey's piece, we brought in Sky Chamberlain and Kristen Palmer. Sky painted backdrops at the original New Theater in Berlin.
And we do think a lot about building the audience. Having the audience be this body that we're communicating with. And so much of like the people who we work with also are drawn from the audience.
I was going to say,
It's circular, and there is like a type of heat or gasoline or excitement. The embarrassment of seeing someone perform is like outrageous. It's like you have that pit in your stomach. And then when you see them do something amazing, something changes inside of you. They have become bigger than themselves. You have become bigger than your relationship to the person on stage. There's like a euphoria in it that is like what community theater is at its most essential.
Yeah, I'm curious about how you find talent or talent finds you. I mean, I was looking at your schedule and saw you had a double feature screening of a young director named Jasmine Johnson. Her films PCH and Heroin and Tweaker Nam. And when I tried Googling her, I found out that there are literally 3 filmmakers named Jasmine Johnson who all work in queer or underground cinema, which is crazy in itself. And she's actually the one, Jasmine Johnson, that's like basically ungoogleable, but yet you screened her work and her work seems very like, I don't know, Zoomer John Waters or something. Maybe could you tell us a bit about the scene you attracted or the scene that found you? How did that happen?
Jasmine is, well, I guess Jasmine you met at a New Year's party.
Yeah, John Tewitt introduced us. And I think what's cool about Jasmine, she also likes to be ungoogleable. That's kind of her underground John Waters thing. But yeah, she's very smart. She's young. She's very good at the electricity of controlling a party in a kind of way that we've all seen in different landscapes. And I think it has a certain charge in Hollywood. And there's like a nuance to it that is spectacular. And for her, the challenge of being like, do you want to make a play? It's like, how do you take that and bottle it? You know, and it's like, you don't have to bottle it for a movie that then you get judged off of for the rest of your life. You get the challenge to make something that all of your friends get to see. You get to suddenly see your friends as actors. Jasmine, her film Death of a Star was shot in the theater. We would just like give her the keys and she would text us like, I need $30 for a bolt cutter. And we would like send it to her and then find out that she like broke into the Hollywood sign, you know, and we'd just be like, as producers, you'd just be like, okay, like, I guess we'll ask questions later. I think she's going to go on to make amazing films, but the theater got to be this interim container for that energy where she could also like make mistakes and have fun and like make these films in a way that got to challenge what a film is and got to challenge what a play is and got to challenge her friends to kind of be actors in this landscape that didn't have to make total sense. Like, I think that's what's so nice about the theater is it removes this desire for a final package, which I think is the curse of Los Angeles, is like the perfect pitch deck and the perfect short and then the perfect feature film. And that's what everyone's working towards because that's the body of life of being there. And so the theater is like, actually, let's just make something quickly with our friends in a way that's like real and then can also be responsive to what's happening. Because like everything that gets made actually got made 3 years ago. So there's already this like living in the past of what gets turned out there. I think Jasmine also, it's like we love her and we're like so grateful that she wanted to work with us. And then like we now work with her mom in like our plays, you know, and like Jasmine was in our last play called The End Is New, which was at Red Cat in December. And that was about a woman who had been editing a documentary film for 30 years and couldn't give up on this story. And she was haunted by the people that she worked with. So Jasmine in the film plays the young version and Jasmine's mom plays her 30 years later on stage. So everyone starts bleeding into each other's work.
Right.
You get to see this shared vernacular that's really funny and alive in a way that we can't control.
There's so many ways to make theater.
Like, for instance, when you say, like...
In, like, maybe 20 or 30 years ago, theater in LA was all about casting. Like, basically, plays were put up for casting agents.
We always called it the gym. You know, like, you can really feel it. It's like, people are just like, look at what I can do. I'm lifting a weight. Look me over here. I'm doing this. It's like, you're just showing what your body is capable of representing. Exactly. Yeah. That can also be the same thing for writing, you know, and so then you get these plays that just feel like Netflix episodes and you're just like, oh my God, I just like should have watched TV in bed. Like, why am I sitting here? And like, it's funny, there's so many readings of those and you realize like, oh, right, they're reading, hoping there's a producer here in the audience, which goes back to this question of like, who's in the audience in Hollywood watching theater? It's actually who you want to be, you know, and it's like
so close to the heart of culture.
Yeah, the heart of the beast. It's right there.
And at a time when that system is really going through a crisis. Yeah, it doesn't quite know how to reformulate.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. It's like people no longer want to make a play so that they can be cast because that doesn't happen anymore.
So theater is newly free in a way.
Yeah.
Theater's newly free. I also think it's like a theater moment, not just in our tiny bend in the river in Hollywood. Like, I think we're seeing like a huge theater moment also like in New York and London and places that were historically always theater places, but in a new way because you have all these really famous actors who have nothing to do. So they're now willing to go play like Macbeth at wherever. So like, and I'm not against it. We're entering to this moment where people really don't want to look at their phones and they really do want to be together, especially in America where we have no third space. We have no, and like theater becomes this post-church, all these like last vestige.
You saying you join a mega church or you join a theater troupe?
No, I'm saying like you want to.
Same thing, Carly.
Same thing. For sure, same thing. It's a cult. But there is relief in people being together. And I think obviously the political landscape of America is so hellish at the moment, particularly in Los Angeles, some place where you're very lonely and isolated all the time in your car or wherever you are. And it's been really fun to kind of watch people make their plays, and then people will write us that something is great, and then we'll get in touch with them. And so maybe that's the joy of being able to like pull from the things that we're really excited by. And then you have these amazing directors in our theater, and we get to sit in on rehearsal and like learn how they talk. So it's also a greedy project. And
we should also mention,
If you've made it this far, you already know New Models is for you. Subscribe now at newmodels.substack.com or patreon.com/newmodels for all of our full episodes and the hundreds more in our archive.